Hi writers, and welcome to this video on the rhetorical triangle, ethos, pathos, logos, and breaking through that triangle into the rhetorical framework. This is a lot of information. In the next 18 weeks, or in the weeks that we have remaining of the semester, we will only scratch the surface of this, and hopefully you'll have a better understanding of how the rhetorical triangle and the rhetorical framework play out in an actual reading or a text that you're doing. Now remember, the rhetorical framework and the rhetorical triangle, as many of you guys have already noticed, are present in our everyday lives. It is the art of persuasion. And so we see it in advertising, we see it in movies, we see it in stories or any narrative, and we also see how it plays out in our own lives, in our everyday interactions, whether you're returning something that you bought at a store or you're trying to convince a friend to go somewhere with you because they're going to have a great time. So let's take a look at the rhetorical framework. This should look somewhat familiar to you. You may have already checked it out. If you haven't, no problem, because we're going to go over these 7 components together in this video. Here is our map. We have our warning about information overload, and that's just a reminder to you that you can only intake so much information at any given time. The way that we build on knowledge is we learn something, and it sparks a neurological pathway in our brain, and then we learn something else, and hopefully it's connected to something else we've already learned, and then we grow from there. So again, this is a process that takes time. We have the next 18 weeks to study rhetoric, and you will continue to study it for the rest of your life, just like you'll continue to build on your writing skills for the rest of your life. So that is a positive. As far as our key here, we have 7 primary components of the rhetorical framework. These are just categories that we've created to look deeply into any given piece of writing or any text, any type of film or advertisement. You can take the rhetorical framework and you can analyze the rhetoric of that thing. And so we have purpose, we have audience, we have situation, we have ethos or persona, we have message, we have writing devices, and we have authority referenced. These are the categories and the order in which they're presented in this handout. The beginning of this handout just talks a little bit about what is rhetorical analysis and what is rhetoric. And we've already defined that a little bit as the art of persuasion, and the rhetorical triangle we've defined as ethos, pathos, and logos. We've looked a little bit at what those categories mean and how they play out in a piece of writing. In this handout, as you go through, you will see what each of these rhetorical triangle components looks like in a given text, and you'll also see the elements of the rhetorical framework broken down. We're going to overview the handout a little bit, and we're going to look over at Wildmind to see what it looks like when we're actually going deeply into a piece of writing. Because Wildmind is the text that we're looking at right now, I have Googled Wildmind in Google Books, and let's see, here it is. So what a lot of people don't know is that with Google Books, you can actually preview and check out books before you buy them. It's really helpful if you have ordered a book and it hasn't come in and you just kind of want to skim over it. So what I'm going to do is I am just going to view it. And when you view it on Google Books, you're able to see parts of the book, not the entire book. Part of Wildmind that we're able to view together that we're going to look at in the context of understanding the rhetorical triangle and the rhetorical framework is the story called Results of Kindness, and it's chapter 2. People ask me over and over again how 10-minute timed writings can translate into short stories, novels, essays. Then they ask me, but what do you do with all these timed writings? My first answer is, I don't know. I mean that. What do I do after I drink a glass of water? I suppose I put down the glass and go out the door. What do I do with waking up in the morning or going to sleep at night? What can we do with the moon or a sidewalk or a garbage can? Writing practice is simply something fundamental, like the colors black and white or moving one foot in front of the other when you walk. The problem is we don't notice that movement of one foot in front of the other. We just move our feet. Writing practice asks you to notice not only how your feet move, but also how your mind moves. And not only that, it makes you notice your mind and begin to trust it and understand it. This is good. It is basic for writing. If you get this, the rest is none of my business. You can do what you want. You are now capable of writing a novel or a short story because you have the fundamental tools. Think of something now that you sincerely want to tell and go ahead and tell it. You'll know to keep your hand moving, to lose control, and to let the story take over, to be grounded in detail. Now it's your choice what you want to do. Okay, so now we're applying it to the rhetorical triangle. In your journal, you're going to make something like this for your story. We're doing it for this one. So for practice, make this in your journal for the story Results of Kindness. We have our triangle. In the center of our triangle, we have our story title in quotation marks. And then we have ethos, pathos, and logos. And we'll weave in the rhetorical framework as well. So I'm going to click back to that handout. And I am going to go over the components. We have the 7 elements. So on the side, you can write purpose. And you can ask yourself, what is Goldberg's purpose in writing this piece? What is the writer trying to accomplish in this essay? What does she want readers to experience when they read the essay? I'm going to go off the cuff and I'm going to write, her purpose is to empower writers. That's my claim. I have to back it up with evidence from the text. So I'm going to click back to her story. Where do I see her trying to empower her reader? There's 2 spots over here where she talks about basics for writing. If you get this, the rest is none of my business. I see that comment, and the one after it, you can do what you want. You can do what you want. That is empowering, to know that as a writer, I can do what I want. So I'm just going to write down that quote, and I'm going to go ahead and put it in here. So I'm just writing the rhetorical framework on the side near my rhetorical triangle. Remember, we're brainstorming and being creative, and this is just a graphic to kind of show what's in my mind and the relationship between these ideas. That is purpose. And you can come up with whatever answer you want. There isn't one answer. You just have to support whatever answer you give, whatever thing you see, by looking directly at the text itself. If you make a claim, back it up. That's where you have evidence to support your claim. So the next one, and again, here's some things to remember about purpose, and then questions. Each of the categories will do that. So audience. Good writers have a true sense and understanding of their audience before they write. Here are some questions to ask about audience. What do the readers or audience know about the topic? What background knowledge might they have on the topic? And I would ask myself, who is Goldberg's intended audience? Multiple times throughout Wildmind, she references writers and students and people who want to write. So I would say audience here is people who want to learn how to write or cultivate a writing practice. Now the next one is situation. Situation is tricky to understand until you apply it to an extreme example, but situation, understanding the situation helps you understand the kind of rules and conventions that a writer is following. Now situation, the question that you can ask is, what is the situation that has prompted the writer to choose this topic? Many times in Wildmind, Goldberg mentions that people want to write and they just don't know how. She gives the example of her friend who's a lawyer who basically quits being a lawyer to become a writer and then fails miserably because he doesn't have a writing practice. And so I would say for a writing situation, for this particular piece, let's click back on her story, would be people who are cultivating a writing practice. The situation that's prompting her writing is her desire to want to help people cultivate a writing practice. So I only got through part of the rhetorical framework here. We still have ethos or persona, message, writing devices, and authority referenced. When I paused my video and I finished out my cluster, this is what it looks like. I'm going to end the video by just showing you this. This is all the brainstorming I came up with in about 3 minutes. All I did was I went through each one of these sections here. I looked at the question, right, to ask, and then I went ahead and I busted out some ideas here on the actual notes that I was taking while referencing my reading specifically. So remember, this is one way that you can practice the rhetorical framework. Good luck.